Graham is a special community. Discover Graham with Dorman is a video series designed to tell the stories of the people who make Graham so very special. Dorman Holub is a preacher at Eastside Church of Christ and a dedicated historian. After moving here with his wife, Dorman spent many years getting to know the people here and fell in love with Graham and also the people. The first video in Discover Graham with Dorman features lifelong resident Sammye Knox. Mrs. Knox is now 93 years old and has a powerful story full of breaking glass ceilings, overcoming obstacles, and full of gracious love for others. Mrs. Knox became the first female bank president when she accepted the position with Graham Savings and Loan. She received the Women's Hall of Fame recognition in 1988 and served the community of Graham through volunteerism with Meals on Wheels, as a charter member of the Graham Hospital Auxiliary, on various other boards of nonprofit organizations, and at the First United Methodist Church. Sammye also dedicated her life to being a loving wife, mother, and grandmother, and she's paved the way for many aspiring leaders in Graham and throughout the state of Texas. Thank you for watching Integrity, Leadership, and Determination, the story of Sammye Knox. For more information, upcoming Discover Graham with Dorman videos, please visit the Chamber of Commerce website at www.grahamtexas.net or find us on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram.
So tonight we're going to talk a little bit with Sammye Knox, and we're going to talk about one of the things in the early Graham history. I want to introduce for everyone today Mrs. Sammye Knox. And Sammye, one of the things we wanted to talk to you about as we discover Graham is kind of some of your experiences. And so tell us your name.
I am Sammye Knox, and I went to work for Graham Savings in 1958. I actually was employed to type ledger sheets and books for Graham Savings' first computer system. And it was an old Burroughs machine that required it to have the ledger sheets and the books. Graham Savings was organized in 1934, and H.L. Thornton was the main person with Johnny Matthews that organized it. And as I said, I went to work for them in 1958 as I was going to type. And then their clerk left and in 1959, and they asked me to start work as a clerk, which I did. And I absolutely worked every position at Graham Savings that you could hold, that institution was required to have: a secretary, assistant vice president, and then president, CEO. I didn't have a lot of assistance because when I went to work for Graham Savings, the total assets were about $4 million. And we were still in a growing position and not able to hire a lot of employees. And as you said, women were not recognized in the business world. And that is not to say I was abused, because I wasn't.
Right.
I wasn't recognized.
Sure.
And then when I started going to the seminars and schools to learn more, I would be the only female at those meetings. And I had several remarks the men were just not accustomed to seeing
Oh, yeah.
a
yeah.
woman at those meetings.
Well, I think that's part of the society at that time period, the culture at that time period.
They just were not recognized.
Now, what were some of the subjects you took in high school?
Well, of course, I took the basics,
Yeah.
and then my senior year, and more especially the postgraduate course
Right.
that I took. That's where I got the advanced subjects, like in bookkeeping,
Right.
secretarial science, typing, and Greg's shorthand.
Yes, yes.
I'll bet you don't know what that is either.
So now here's something I thought was interesting. So when you graduated from Graham High School, I think I understood you to say that you actually went back to Graham School to take those postgraduate studies. That was an option that was available
That's right.
in that time period. Now, what year did you graduate from Graham High School?
45.
Okay, 45. So the war is kind of winding down, but that was pretty interesting that Graham High School offered postgraduate studies to, I guess, young women who wanted to further their education.
I think I told you when we talked previously, my dad thought it was imperative that my brothers get some kind of college degree,
Yes,
which they went to
yes.
business college. He did not, well, he just didn't
Didn't
consider
emphasize it for the girl.
the
right.
girls. But he did push all three of us
Right.
into taking postgraduate
Okay.
courses.
Okay. Now, did your brothers go to war?
Yes.
Okay.
The two older ones did.
Okay. Okay.
In fact, I think I told you that my younger brother, who was a pilot,
Right.
crashed in the
Mhm.
Pacific and was picked
Sure.
up on Christmas Eve.
Right. Was he singing? I think is what you said.
Yes, the
Yeah.
English captain from the ship that picked him up telegraphed my father that when he heard the singing, he knew it was an American, because no one else would be crazy enough to be in a life raft in the middle of the Pacific singing Christmas carols.
With a Texas twang, of course.
Well, I'm sure that was but
So when do you think when you graduated from high school, do you think most of the girls that you went to school with in the high school, do you think that they had any aspirations or desire? Do you think that their parents pushed them into going to college, or do you think that it was mostly, the idea that, well, when you're a girl, you graduate from high school, you get married, you have children, and you're a stay-at-home mom, and do you think that was kind of the thinking in the 40s?
it more especially the country.
Oh yeah.
Now what we call the city girls,
Right. Right.
their parents seem to push them towards
Sure.
college more.
Well,
Country people just did not.
yeah, they didn't have the means.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we would have had the means. It just wasn't considered
Right.
that we go.
So when you graduated from high school and you got your postgraduate courses, what was your first job?
For a telephone company, which the dean of students, Mrs. Howe,
Oh yes.
was not real happy with me working there. And she really kind of pushed me towards trying to find something like Graham Savings.
Yeah.
And as I went to work for Graham Savings, and as I said, I worked all the positions.
Now wait a minute, were you the janitor too?
Do you really want to know the truth?
I really want to know the truth.
One of the first jobs I had, do you remember the year that the crickets were so bad?
Yeah.
I had to sweep those crickets out
Ah,
before we opened up every morning.
I bet you can still smell them, can't you?
Oh. And I guess you can figure out that I would have to clean the bathrooms too.
Right, sure.
Which it really didn't come under my job
Right.
description.
Well, find a need and fill it. I mean,
I don't resent anything that I did at Graham Savings because it gave me such an opportunity to advance.
Yeah.
And as I told you, Glenn Regal was, he wasn't president when I went to work. Mr. Thornton still was.
Sure, okay.
And then when Glenn became president, he gave me so many opportunities. He encouraged me to go to these seminars and these schools.
Yeah.
And I actually was responsible for any change in laws or regulations that affected Graham Savings. This was a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
But he was a wonderful boss.
Right.
He gave me every opportunity. And when I became president, I had wonderful directors and employees.
Right.
A business can't function without good employees, and if it has a board, you need, and the board was so supportive of me.
Sure. Let me ask you a question about Graham Savings. So, when you left the telephone company, then you went to Graham Savings to get a job?
No, actually, I was married and we moved out of town to Abilene.
Okay.
And
so let me ask you about that. So tell me about who you married.
Married Buddy Knox.
When did y'all marry?
In 1946.
Where did y'all marry at? At the Methodist
The
Church?
parsonage here in Graham.
Okay, the parsonage. Who was the pastor? Do you remember?
I think it was Schubert.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure it was Schubert. And
I've got to ask this question: was it a romantic proposal when he asked you to marry him?
Not really. It was kind of the expected proposal.
Okay. So how old was he? When y'all got married, how old was he and how old were you?
I was 20.
Okay.
And he was 24, I believe.
And he fought in the war?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He was in, I think they call it the European.
Oh, yeah. European theater, I bet. That's right.
Germany, France, Italy.
Well, now, so y'all married and moved away from Graham. So when did y'all return to Graham?
In 1958.
Okay. How many kids did you have then?
2.
2. Okay.
And I guess both of them were in school.
Okay.
And
well, it's kind of uncharacteristic for a woman to have children at home, even though they're at school, 1958, and for you to go to work.
My mother-in-law, when they called me and asked me to, said, absolutely, go. I'll come and I'll stay with the kids when they get home from school.
That's awesome.
It was wonderful.
That's great. Wonderful.
And she did this for, I don't know how many years.
Right.
And
so when you went to work for Graham Savings, how many other women were at Graham Savings then, working for the company?
None.
So you're the very first one then from that time?
No, but not. They had a woman before.
Oh, they had one before. I see.
But we only had one employee.
Okay. So where was Graham Savings when you started working for
It
them?
was in the building I think the Peavies are in now.
Okay, okay.
It
It's
wasn't
there on 4th Street, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
And then, well, it was several years after I went to work. It's in 1966.
Yes.
They built the new building.
Right, right. And it's still on 4th Street, though,
Yeah.
right?
And ironically, my grandson-in-law has an office in that building.
That's right, that's right. That's exactly right. It had a fountain in front of it. I remember it had a fountain, and that's where the old oak tree is for the Texas Cattle Raisers Association.
That's exactly right.
So when you went to work for Graham and Savings, did you have some kind of ambition? Did you say, this is what I'm going to be?
No.
Or did you say, I'm going to work here, and if this works, that's fine. If it doesn't work,
I absolutely had no ambition to be president.
Right, right. So it's just a job, right?
It was a responsibility,
Oh, that's
being vice president and
Yeah.
secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And as I told you, I was responsible for any changes.
Right, right.
And there was some monumental changes.
Sure. So you felt like you were promoted each time because of your determination, your drive, your experience?
I think my experience
Yeah.
and my ability
Right.
to
Yeah, your longevity.
grasp things and my ability to take responsibility and run with it.
So when you talked about this earlier, when you would go to seminars or when you would go to meetings of other bank presidents or those things, how were you treated as a woman at those seminars? You said you were the only one of all the women there. I mean, of all the people there, you were the only woman there.
I was not accepted,
Right.
if that's what you're asking. The remarks that were made to me were like, well, someone told me that there was a woman at this meeting. Or they'd say, well, are you lost? Or they never, ever acknowledged
Right, right.
that. And I think I told you about when we decided to go with a new computer system. Glenn asked me to go to we were having a convention, and
Right.
that's when the salesmen all
Sure.
set their wares up, and he asked me to go and find new computers. And Buddy went with me, and I am telling you the truth, that not one time did I get a chance to talk to these salesmen. When I would go up and ask, they would turn to Buddy. And Buddy would tell them, I'm not the one, she's the one. They would not acknowledge that. Well, they just didn't really think I was the one they needed.
Right, sure.
That he was the one they needed to be talking to.
Yeah. Such a unique opportunity for a woman to be a bank president, and maybe you're the person who helped break those barriers down.
Well, I don't know about that.
But you would say you're probably a determined person, though, aren't you?
I am a what?
A determined person.
Anything that I was associated with, I was going to do my best and be good.
Right, right.
That's not to sing my praise.
Right,
It's
no.
just that my father raised us that way.
Right.
The old adage, anything worth doing is worth doing right. Well, and that's not to say I didn't make lots of mistakes.
Right, sure.
But I learned from my mistakes.
So you were involved in the community too, though, not just bank president. Were you a member of any of the clubs in town?
I was president of the Chaparral Club.
Okay.
I was a director of the Graham Industrial Association.
Okay.
And I was a director and secretary of the first committee that was working on a community college.
So now I've got another question to ask you. So here you're bank president, you're involved in the community, and you're a mother, and you're a wife. How did you get all that? How did you keep all that together at the same time?
Well, I taught Sunday school for 60 years.
Okay.
And when the boys were in Scouts, I was a den mother.
All right.
And I had the backing of Buddy, very helpful. And the boys were helpful too.
Tell me the names of your children.
Well, the older one was John Allen.
Okay.
He died
Right.
recently. And the second one was Kenneth Jean. He was named after the football player at Graham High School.
Oh, yeah.
That was killed.
That died.
In
yeah.
52.
In the 50s, that's right.
And then our surprise came along in 1963, and that was Lisa Irene.
Okay.
She was named after my mother.
Good. So let me ask you one more question. What do you think motivates you each day?
Now,
Right now.
I think my children,
Okay.
and I love my town.
Right.
I sound like I work for the Chamber of Commerce. By the way, I was the director of the Chamber of Commerce.
Good. Well, that's neat. So, can you give any advice to young women? You know, they're going to watch this video and they're going to say, "Oh man, I really liked hearing about the life of Sammye Knox." So, do you have any advice for young women who want to excel in the business world, or maybe even want to excel in education, or got any advice?
I really, just what I believe and what helped me is it doesn't matter how, the job is so many, just like sweeping crickets,
Sure.
but you do a good job.
Yeah.
And you work hard at it.
Right.
And you don't ask for a lot of relaxing of rules or regulations. You simply, if it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing a good job. And that's
Right.
what I believe. And take advantage
Yeah.
of every educational thing you can do to help you. Take advantage of every school, every seminar that will help you advance.
So can you give advice to our young women about how to be a person who perseveres? Because you had to gotten discouraged when you worked at Graham Savings. There had to be some of those times where, you just didn't know
You
if you were
push
gonna make it
through
or
the
not.
bad times.
Push through.
And when I became president, was right in the midst of when the savings and loans started having so much trouble. And we were a mutual association, which meant that there were no stockholders. Every depositor owned as much as the next depositor. It's just that, well, it was a matter of how much they had on deposit. But no one owned the savings and loan per se. And as I said, the savings and loans started having so much trouble. And the FSLIC, with the help of Congress, passed a law that if your savings and loan actually was written to zero,
Okay.
meaning that they had as many debts
Right.
or like depositors as they had assets,
Right.
then you could convert to a stock association with the understanding to convert to a stock association, you were allowed to have as many as 35 stockholders, but they had to be very knowledgeable stockholders. They had to know exactly what you were doing and what they were doing.
Right.
Surprisingly enough, with the help of my directors, and believe me, they were the ones that really worked at this, we got our 35 investors and converted to stock. And
So y'all went public then, right? Is that what you did?
well, it was, I guess you could use the term public, but we weren't allowed to go to public per se.
Oh, okay.
We had to be sure of the investors being very savvy as to what was happening. And we actually had no problem.
Yeah.
That is, it's so, I say it now and I'm still surprised that we had no problem. And we had to raise, I forget how many million dollars to.
Oh, yeah.
This was one of the criteria. But we did. And.
Well, let me ask you one more question. So can you explain to young women who might be watching our video, what kind of work ethic does it take to succeed?
It takes a very dedicated, very, I would say that when you come in the front door, you check all of your problems and things that have you worried at the front door, and go in and give a committed 8 hours of hard work. I really don't know of any job that wouldn't fit. It not just the savings and loan, but it is very hard. Believe it or not, a woman has a hard time checking all of her problems at the front door. But to be a really good, committed employee, you just have to do that.
Yeah.
And then when you walk out, when the day's over, you pick them up again.
Yeah.
And hopefully solve them when you get home.
Right. Well, when you think about it, that's kind of life. You know, you've got to, it's kind of like business. You when you come home, you got to kind of check the problems of business at the door and leave those behind, because now your focus is on your family, which is really more important.
That's exactly right. You have to, when you enter the front door or the back door of your home, you not only pick up those problems, but you have a work thing waiting for you, and you need to be dedicated to your children and your husband. I can't stress how you have to have an ability to separate your private, personal life from your business.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Very true.
Your job. And I really think that if you're working for the public, you have I don't know, you need to be involved in the community.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I believe so completely that it's like I used to tell Buddy, that if you carry a title, you have an obligation to work with. Like if my directors ask me to do something,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you carry that title,
Mm-hmm.
you have got to be available
Right.
to do these things in the community.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not to say you can't get over involved.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I
That's
was
true.
certainly guilty of at times.
Oh, well, I think we all
But-
have struggled with that.
I made time for my children
Sure.
and my husband.
Yeah,
I guess you could ask Krista if her dad felt like I gave him all the time he was supposed to.
He doesn't count.
He's pretty spoiled. He's pretty spoiled.
We don't count his opinion on things.
Oh, okay.
He's pretty spoiled.
He is pretty spoiled.
They learned to work. They grew up just like I did, not in the country, but they started working with their dad out in the oil field, very young, and for their Uncle Charlie, digging ditches, which was really hard work for
It
young
probably
boys.
didn't hurt him. Let me ask you one more question, Sammye, and we'll come to a close. If you had one piece of advice you could give people, what would it be?
Are you allowed to say, love the Lord, be active in your church, be committed to your family, and whatever job you undertake, give it 100% while you're on that job.
Well, I think the only thing I can think to say is amen.
Oh,
And I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with us this morning and talk about your life because honestly, this has been like a dream come true. I told you that the first time we sat down and visited because it was almost like I read about your life and I read about your being president of Graham Savings and Loan, and I've known about the Knox family. You know, you're an inspiration to me because you know, you've accomplished a lot of great things in your life, but it's what you said in the closing statement that is the reason I think that you're able to do all these things is because of your complete trust in what God does in your life, because of your family and your dedication and love to your family, because I know from our conversations that you loved your husband very dearly. You loved your parents very dearly. And I really think they were a help to you and an inspiration to you as you were able to do your job at Graham Savings and other things you're involved with in the community, because everything that you listed in the community involvement, that's not just showing up at those meetings, that's looking for ways that can make Graham a better place. And honestly,
I really believe it. I love Graham.
yes,
I love the community. I hate that I know that I cannot take part in
right,
the active things.
sure, yeah. Well, and you know, Graham's a unique place. It's not like any place else in the area. There's lots of little towns, but you know, it's men and women like you that have made a difference in the way Graham, Texas has existed.